Welcome back to Punch Plan. Today I have a new kind of video for you guys. I'm going to be bringing you guys the 10 YouTube boxing fights that we need in 2024. Pretty much just a wish list of some great fights that could really make or break the scene, especially in the position that it's in right now. So let's get started with number 10, Jack Doherty versus Danny Aarons. Now this fight has kind of been brewing, especially recently, the back and forth between Danny Aarons and Jack Doherty, which would be two newcomers to the scene, neither of them having had a previous boxing match, and two guys that are kind of popping off right now. I don't really know much about either of them. I just know that Jack Doherty is some moron streamer. But I feel like YouTube boxing is kind of in a space where they need some new faces, some fresh blood, and these are two new guys coming in. So I think that could definitely make sense if they both agree to do it. At number 9, we have Dean the Great versus Adam Saleh. Now Dean has had his big rivalry with Waleed Sharks over the last couple of years, and it's kind of been settled now. He's 2-0 against him, 1 knockout and 1 pretty dominant decision. So I feel like he needs some new title challengers, and I don't feel like too many people are too deserving. Maybe Yuddy Gang, maybe potentially Fox the G later down the line, but right now I feel like Adam Saleh could be a good option. Someone who just beat the same opponent as him. He beat Evil Hero last year on Jake Paul's card. He also had a very close fight with Waleed Sharks a couple years ago. That one was actually quite a while ago. But still, I feel like we need someone new for Dean, so I think Adam Saleh kind of makes the most sense. Next up, we have the rematch between Deji and Alex Wasabi. This is one that I feel like just has to get made. They fought about 2 years ago now in what was a pretty lackluster fight, but they've continued boxing since, and they've only gone better, only won since then. And it was a pretty big rivalry, a pretty big beef, and Alex Wasabi won that one. He said if he has one more fight, he would want it to be against Deji, and that's pretty much the last one that he wants. Deji hasn't really shown much interest in the Wasabi fight, besides the fact that he just wants to get back his losses, so I feel like this would be a good place to start. If he does get past Wasabi, that makes for another redemption arc in his story, as well as just making him into that conversation of being one of the best in the scene. So I don't feel like it's the best fight you can make for Deji at this moment, as we'll see a bit later on. I do think if there's one rematch that has to be run back, has to be settled, it's probably this one. At number 7, we have Jarvis versus Salt Papi. This one I just feel like is a fun matchup. Salt Papi coming off of 2 losses, looking for redemption, and he's still a big name. Meanwhile, Jarvis just won the title over B-Dave. That was a great dominant performance. I feel like these guys both just go at it and they'll give it their all pretty much. So I feel like it's just a fun matchup, fun matchmaking. And I think it's just going to be a competitive fight, so I'd love to see it. Next up on the list, we have Blueface versus Slim. Now, this is a fight that Slim has been talking about for a while. Blueface may not be the most reliable, gets into trouble a lot, and that ends up in a lot of his fights getting canceled, like the one that he was supposed to have against Salt Papi, and Slim was not even supposed to be in the position to even fight Salt Papi. But here we are, Slim took his place and knocked Salt Papi out, so I feel like Blueface could be a great title challenger. Doesn't really make too much sense to make a Salt Papi rematch for Slim. I don't know who else in that division really is super exciting, at least from a mainstream point of view. There are some guys that are kind of low-key like OJ Rose and Ashi Raksu, but I feel like Blueface brings that mainstream attention, is a great fight, is a competitive fight as well. And stylistically, they're both going to bring it, both coming off of wins, Blueface having beaten Ed Matthews. So that's definitely a fun fight to make this year, in my opinion. Next one, we have one that has been talked about for a while now, Bazinga versus Joe Weller. One to bring back that OG YouTube boxing feel, 2 UK YouTubers, big names going at it in the ring. And this one kind of has that storyline of Ethan being in the sidemen, going into the ring against Joe Weller, who really started it all, founded this whole thing. The one problem though is Bazinga's never fought before, and Joe Weller has the edge and experience, obviously starting this whole thing, fighting KSI back in 2018. But that was like 6 years ago at this point. A lot has changed. Hopefully this fight could get made on Misfits. There's been some hurdles with the negotiations and everything, but if they can't come to an agreement, this would definitely be an exciting fight. But next up at number 4, we have Deji versus Bryce Hall, one that I feel like just has to get made. Both guys are massive names. They've had an ongoing rivalry for years now. Bryce Hall is coming off a win in bare knuckles, so he has a lot of momentum coming off of that fight. And Deji has just been continuing his path on the redemption journey, so I feel like this one definitely makes sense. But next up, we have a kind of unrealistic one, but hear me out. Logan Paul versus Andrew Tate. Now, I know there may be some legal troubles with Andrew Tate and the like, but I feel like this fight would be absolutely huge. If there was ever a way to get this done, it just makes all the sense in the world. That heated rivalry between both of them, just talking, trading shots over the years, and both guys just being the older brother of what are probably the most famous brothers on the internet. The Paul brothers meet the Tate brothers, Logan Paul, Andrew Tate, this would be huge. And stylistically it makes sense, Logan Paul younger, but Andrew Tate with that more experience in kickboxing and just being a world champion there. This would definitely be a huge fight that would break the internet, but as I said, maybe not the most realistic option on this list. But now moving on to number 2, one that I feel like is much more realistic, but also one that hasn't been made up until this point, which is kind of crazy to think about. Both guys have been at the top of the YouTube boxing scene for like 3 years and counting, AnEsonGib and Slim. This one just needs to get made. They're both at the same weight. They both just keep on winning. They've been on very different paths, Gib having that Jake Paul fight and then taking over Social Gloves, taking over Kingpin. Meanwhile, Slim growing in those little Dubai events and then making his way over to Misfits and killing it there. He's made a splash in this scene recently, and I feel like these two definitely need to collide in 2024. Hopefully this fight gets done. There's been some issues with Gib not being able to come to agreement with Misfits Boxing, with his coach even hinting that he's retiring entirely and he's never going to fight again, which I don't know how true that is, honestly. I feel like when you're in the middle of this whole thing, you're training your ass off and you're in your prime, it's just so hard to let go of, and everyone really wants to see this matchup. It would really elevate the winner into a spot that we've really never seen before. A guaranteed, at least definite third place under KSI and Jake Paul, potentially even higher than that. This is just one of those fights that I feel like has to get made, and just like a lot of them on this video, they have that history, they have that bad blood. Let's see it. And finally, you know what the last one is going to be. Coming in at number 1 is Jake Paul versus Canelo. No, I'm kidding. Jake Paul versus KSI is the fight that pretty much makes or breaks YouTube boxing. We need this fight in 2024. We just need this fight in general. The negotiations, the back and forth, the 6 years of buildup. The literal reason that both guys are continuing to box to this day is because of each other. If KSI never introduced Jake to boxing, he wouldn't have really been here. And if Jake wasn't making a splash himself, then KSI wouldn't have came back. It's been a long journey, and this one just has to get settled. KSI versus Jake Paul. It's in the thumbnail. It's the biggest fight you can make. It's the biggest fight there is. Hopefully we see this fight and many more this year in 2024. Let me know in the comments down below what fights you guys want to see this year. Are there any that I missed that I may be sleeping on that you guys would really want to see? Let me know in the comments down below. But thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to knock that like button out. Subscribe to the channel if you guys enjoyed. Turn your notification bells on to stay updated. Take care and peace.